We need to be constantly entertained now. We have our phones, we have TV, we need a playlist, we need music. Yoga, to me, I want my yoga class to be the most boring goddamn class in the world because we don't know how to be bored anymore, right? We need rock music playing. We need all this stuff. I'll tell you the most powerful, badass thing you can do. I think stillness is a radical act. You know what I mean? We don't know how to be still anymore. We don't know how to be silent. We need to always hear something. We need to be entertained. I'm trying to break all that.
Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. If you are a new listener, thank you for tuning in. I'm so happy that you are here. And if you are a returning listener, I am so happy. Welcome back to the show. So this podcast, Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast, was started because I am a full-time yoga teacher, and I always wondered, especially when I was a new yoga teacher, how other full-time yoga teachers were making it work. Like, how are they actually making a living teaching yoga? Is that even possible? How do they do it? How many classes do you have to teach? What do you do with your health insurance? What about your retirement plans? So these are the questions that I had. And I was able to ask some full-time yoga teachers that I knew in my area, but I wanted to find out from more yoga teachers. And I wanted to share their unique journey and stories of how they became full-time yoga teacher and how are they making it work even now. So that's kind of why this podcast was started. So I am interviewing full-time yoga teachers from across the world. Some are traveling yoga teachers, some come from another career path. Some have quit being a full-time yoga teacher. So I think it's really interesting and fun to listen to everyone's journey. Everyone's journey is so unique and different, which is what makes this podcast really fun and interesting for me. But also there's this common thread and common theme that is across almost everyone's stories that they share. And I think that is also very interesting to hear and also inspiring. So I hope you're enjoying listening to this podcast. I do have a couple of announcements before we start. Module 3 for the mentorship program that I run for yoga teacher is taking application right now. The module 3 starts from September and it goes until December, so it'll be last 4 months of 2025, and this is the last time this application is going to open for the mentorship program for this year, 2025. So don't miss it. You might be wondering, what is mentorship program for yoga teachers? Mentorship program for yoga teachers is this community of amazing, kind, warm, and welcoming yoga teachers who want to continue to refine their teaching skills, continue to learn and deepen their knowledge on topic of yoga, continue to want to learn more about anatomy, philosophy, and want to do it in this supportive communities of other yoga teachers. So monthly we meet on Zoom for yoga philosophy discussions. We also meet for pranayama and meditation class. We also meet for yoga book club meeting where we will be reading Yoga Revolution written by Jivana Heyman. And there's also a practice teaching session that we give each other feedback, as well as monthly workshop. A workshop is usually taught by guest teachers, sometime by me, and they are going to bring their expertise to this workshop. Sometimes the workshop is on Zoom, sometimes the workshop is in person, but I have members from all over the world, different time zones. So whenever we do meet in person, I also live stream everybody in. So you can still join this mentorship program from anywhere. It is live streamed, in person, and recorded. So even if you miss it, you can still catch up on the content. I want to tell you a little bit about upcoming guests for this module's mentorship program. For September, I will be teaching Business of Yoga. And for October, I have Karen coming to teach intelligent sequencing. This will be in person in Long Beach and also live streamed and recorded. In November, I have AJ coming back to teach about hypermobility. Yoga meets physical therapy. AJ is a physical therapist and a yoga teacher and brings in this unique perspective because AJ lives in both worlds and is going to share amazing information in this workshop. I'm actually very excited about this. And for December, I have Thomas, who is also a physical therapist, coming to teach a workshop on injury prevention. So I'm really excited for the lineup for this module. One more thing, you also do get to sign up for one one-on-one session with me during this 4 month to talk about anything specific to you, any specific goals you have, any specific questions you have. This one-on-one can be catered to you, whatever you need. Because besides this one-on-one session, it's usually typically done in group format, which I love because I think we learn so much from each other. And I love when everybody share their experiences or how they understood the philosophical concept. And that's kind of how yoga become alive. Like, it's not just this thing and theory we learn in the book, but actually living and practicing yoga become practical and alive when we can actually relate it to each other in our lives. So that's what the mentorship is about. If you're interested, you can always message me and ask me questions, as well as you can click on the link on the bio. You can find the link in the show notes to fill out the application form. I do my best to keep this mentorship program accessible in terms of financially, as well as how we do it in terms of online, in-person, and hybrid learning style, as well as financially, because this workshop is $45 a month for the full 4 month. So it becomes total $180 if you want to sign up and commit for the 4 month. If you're interested, highly encourage you to sign up or just ask me questions if you have any questions about that. That is it for the update and announcement. So today I have a very exciting guest. So today I have a very exciting interview I want to share with you. Recently, I was a guest on a podcast called J Brown Yoga, and it's one of the oldest podcasts that's been going on. I think he's been doing this for like 15 years or something. And it was such a great conversation. But I listen to J Brown's podcast every week, and I was listening to a podcast episode that Jay was interviewing Steve. And Steve is a yoga teacher as well as ultra runner. And when I first found out about Steve and listened to his podcast, I was like, I have to bring him on. Because some of you know that I've been getting into running these days. And right now I'm training for my first ultra 50K trail race. I think I updated you all that my race was canceled, but I'm still going to run it anyway on my own. But I wanted to bring Steve on because I wanted to speak to other yoga teachers, other full-time yoga teachers who are also ultra runner. It's not a combination that I personally have seen too much. And I really wanted to ask Steve about how he is able to balance both running and yoga. How has he found running and yoga complement one another, or maybe doesn't complement one another? So it was a really fun conversation I had with Steve. He also have a really interesting and inspiring background that we did not touch on in this podcast interview. But if you want to learn more about his story, I'm going to link 2 podcast episodes that he has been a guest in the past where he talked in depth about his experience. So go check those episodes out if you are interested in learning more about him. So Steve has been teaching yoga for 6 years and have been full-time yoga teacher for about 3.5 years. 14 years ago, he felt very unhealthy and his body was beat up from years of manual labor. And he just decided to get up off the couch and go running. On that 2-mile run that he did, he decided that he is going to run a marathon in a year. And in that year, he was injured in a half marathon and needed something intense to replace it. So he signed up for hot yoga classes in his neighborhood and he loved it. And that's how he began his love for yoga. Yoga and running has become his passion. He eventually graduated to ultra and trail running, and he did a mentorship to teach 26 and 2 hot yoga class, which is a Bikram style yoga class, and began teaching a few times a week. And his life changed when he met Ida and Scott of Ghosh Yoga. He took their 200 and 300 hour advanced yoga teacher trainings. And this training opened his mind and him to be his very best, not only in the way he teach, but it also ignited his passion for knowledge. After the trainings, he stopped teaching the 26-and-2 format, and now he teaches his own thing. He maintained a vigorous yoga practice, which includes meditation and pranayama, and he also runs about 10 miles a day. And currently, he teaches about 15 studio classes a week, and he is in the process of growing and developing an online yoga presence. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation I had with Steve. It was really fun for me to speak to a yoga teacher who is also an ultra runner. It's quite amazing all that running he has done in the past, and he is still planning to continue to run. And yeah, really, the conversation was very genuine, and I really appreciated his energy, what he shared, and also he was super encouraging about my running, which was really cool. So thank you so much, Steve, for coming on, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Welcome, Steve, to Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you because you are actually the first yoga teacher who is also a ultra runner that I'm having as a guest on this podcast. And I think listener knows that I've been really getting into running more these days, and I'm actually training for my first 50K right now. And I've been listening to a lot of running podcasts as well as yoga podcasts because both are my, something that brings me joy. And I just wanted to bring somebody on who already live in those two worlds. And I'm just very curious to talk to you about your life and your journey. So before we get started, let's tell the listener, where are you joining from? And also, where are you originally from?
Right now I'm in Collingswood, New Jersey. So South Jersey, about 10 miles outside of Philadelphia. But I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Most people now associate that with the show The Office, took place in Scranton. So anytime I say I'm from Scranton, they're like, they bring up The Office. That's like their first reference point. But yeah, I grew up there and I've been living in the Philadelphia area for 25 years.
Okay. So when was it that you were first introduced to yoga, or when you first really get into yoga?
Okay, so really the first kind of getting into yoga. So I'm 47 now. When I was 34, I was delivering furniture. I delivered furniture for 22 years. So I beat up my body. I wasn't doing well. And one day I was just sitting on the couch and I just stood up and I ran out the door. I just ran up the road. I needed to run. I needed to do something. And I ran 2 miles. I couldn't walk for about a week after that. But in that sort of 2 mile span, I thought, like, I'm going to train for a marathon, like just that one run. And I did. I kind of kept at it. I trained for that whole year. But in midway through the year, about 5 months into running, I ran a half marathon, and the next day I couldn't walk. Like, I could barely walk. I couldn't I couldn't bend my knee, my left knee. I didn't know what it was. I tried to give a few days rest, and there was something really, really wrong with my left leg. Ended up being my IT band completely froze up. I couldn't bend my knee, and so I needed to do something. So there was a yoga studio like 2 miles from my house. It just said hot yoga. And I was like, that sounds like it's hard. I need to do something hard because I couldn't run. And it happened to be a Bikram class. And it was like 115 degrees in there. I got absolutely murdered in that class. And then I pretty much went back the same day. So I just started like a consistent practice there. Mostly Bikram, because that was kind of my first exposure, and it was so overwhelming, and I was like, this is a good kind of replacement for not being able to run. So I did physical therapy, and I did other kinds of yoga, vinyasa, whatever, but I did a lot of that, and I really learned about my body. So I guess, around 12 years ago is when I kind of running brought me into yoga, and then it kind of went from there.
Well, I'm curious about the first 2 miles that you run and made you want to run a marathon. Like, did you just love it the first time, or was it just so hard that you're like, I need to push this. Like, I need to keep going at this.
Well, when I was a kid, my father was a runner. Like, he was part of like 1980s like running boom, where everybody was just like every 30-year-old male ran. It was just
Yeah.
like the most popular thing. Everybody ran the New York City Marathon or the
Uh-huh.
Marine Corps Marathon. It was just something everybody did. And I remember I ran a half marathon when I was in 8th grade, and it
Okay.
was like a really kind of big,
Mhm.
but like it actually kind of made me almost hate running. Like I think it was too early or too young to do
Yeah.
that. But it was my dad, so I was like, I'll run it with you.
Yeah.
So I that kinda stuck with me, and then in that 2-mile run, I was like, I'm very kind of impulsive with things, and sometimes
Mhm.
that impulse ends up being something negative, like something bad happens to me or something really good happens to me, but
Mhm.
I get an idea in my head, and I just take off, and I go with it,
Yeah.
and it just so happened that, like, this instinct, led me right kind of where I'm talking to you right now, so
Yeah.
it's been a real whirlwind of
Uh-huh.
I never thought I would end up in the situation that I'm at now.
Yeah. So kind of seems like both running and practicing starting yoga at around the same time. Running came first, but it both seems like you just like love it and just I'm just gonna go with it, like completely in.
Like, I do that, like, once, like I mean, I wasn't always, like, the healthiest person. I used to smoke when I used to smoke cigarettes, I smoked 2 packs a day, like, if I do something, I
Mhm.
go all the way with it, and then
Mm.
when I needed to quit, I quit cold turkey. Just
Uh-huh.
like with
Yeah.
running,
Yeah.
I started running, and I just went full in,
Uh-huh.
and the only thing that so, like, now there's so much information out there about, like,
Mhm.
training. You can
Mhm.
just go right online and look. So, like,
Mhm.
when I started, it was still kind of like things were difficult to find, so
Yeah.
I just ran, and
Uh-huh.
I just had the most horrible injuries, like, I knew nothing about, like,
Mhm.
progression of training, and I just
Yeah.
ran, and my shins, my feet,
Uh-huh.
it were like I just tell people now, like, "Please, like, be careful," because, like, I just luckily, I've always had a very high pain tolerance, so I can
Mhm.
withstand like,
Mhm.
the punishment and kinda, like, push through it, but
Yeah.
it was a rough the first 6, 7 months was
Uh-huh.
really, really rough, but as soon as that I kinda worked all those injuries out,
Mhm.
then it just exploded, like, I qualified for Boston on my first marathon.
Wow, that's
Yeah, so,
amazing.
and I thought, like I didn't even know I did, I actually was disappointed in my time, I did, like, a 3:06, and I remember going out to breakfast right after the
Uh-huh.
race, and there was other runners there, and I was like, "Yeah, I was looking for, like, a 3:04, 3:05, and I did 3:06." They're like, "I think you might have qualified for Boston." I didn't even really know, like, what the
Yeah.
qualifying times were, and I did Boston 3 years in a row, you know
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing, the first marathon you qualified. Okay, so tell me, I don't know, how long did you train for your first like, full marathon?
So it was that first 2-mile run
Uh-huh.
was in October when I was 34, and the Philadelphia Marathon was November of the next year. So,
Okay.
like 13 months, 12
Yeah,
months was that time. And at that time, I was in physical therapy for 2.5 months for my IT band.
yeah,
I would go twice a week for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, running in the pool, doing yoga a few times a week. Like
yeah.
I just kept
Okay.
doing that.
And then I know you started practicing yoga kinda in the beginning of that running journey, and when did you start to think like, "I think I want to become a yoga teacher?"
So maybe about 2017 or 2018,
Mhm,
I was just not like I was starting to feel kind of that I was meant to do something else besides manual labor. Like,
mhm,
I've had a very difficult past. I heard in the Jay Brown podcast, like a trauma
mhm,
survivor. So, like, I just kind of, when I was 19, I was in college to be a teacher.
mhm,
And now, because what happened to me, I couldn't be a teacher.
mhm,
And I just felt that, like, I loved yoga, I loved
mhm,
running, and I felt that I didn't wanna be 80 years old and know that I could have done something, like,
mhm,
more brought something to this world.
mhm,
And so I just had the idea, again, just like an instinct, I'm like, "I think I would be a good teacher."
mhm.
And
Yeah.
I just reached out to a local teacher that I really liked,
Mhm.
Suzanne, and I asked her maybe kind of do like a mentorship or like,
Yeah.
train me, and she did.
Mhm.
And then I just went to the studio that I started at
Mhm.
when I first started running.
Mhm.
She gave me a Saturday morning class.
Mhm.
I was did 26 and 2.
Yeah.
And, that's kinda how it started. I just started
Okay.
there, and at that point, the that Bikram program at that studio was kinda dying off, like,
Mhm.
they were trying to find teachers, and there was only 3 or 4 people in the class, and I started, and then after a few weeks, it
Mhm.
began to kinda sell out, like, the class was full,
Wow.
and then I got another class on a Wednesday,
Mhm.
full, and then the world fell apart. COVID had happened. I started physically teaching around 6 months before COVID hit.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So, I was teaching and everything was just classes were full. It was
Mhm.
just so amazing. And then it felt like I was like, "This is I may never teach. There may never ever be in studio classes ever again." Like, it was that scary. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's the kinda it just kinda shut down from there, and
Yeah.
here we are now.
Okay, I wanna ask, how many years, in of practicing did you become a teacher, start teaching?
So, I was practicing for, like, 8 years.
Okay, and mostly you were practicing the 26 and 2
Yeah,
style,
that and
Bikram
I
style?
mean, just about anything, but that was, like, my main form of practice. I just like,
Yeah,
the no music, the
yeah.
postures held in stillness and, like, the intensity. It's
Mhm,
not kinda where I am now, but, like, at the time, like, I was just in the mode of, like, I want the most intense of everything that there
mhm.
possibly is. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? That's kinda how I wanted everything to be, and that was
yeah.
that's how we are at certain times in our life where we need
Mhm.
constant intensity or we're
Yeah.
just trying to find ourselves, and that's kinda where it goes.
And, I know you said that you what is it, mentored by your teacher, and then you started teaching, so there wasn't, like, official
No,
200-hour teacher training that you've
no,
taken?
no, just kind of like, and that's honestly like how it used to be done back a long
Yeah.
time ago, like,
Mhm.
before there came, like, official 200-hour, you just kinda you
Mhm.
went to yoga and then, maybe a teacher would be like, "Hey, I'm going on vacation. Can you fill in for me?" And you would, like,
Yeah.
do things. So, like, that's just the kinda I was just lucky that somebody offered to do that, and
Mhm.
that's kinda how I got started about, just getting up in front of people and speaking and
Yeah,
doing my thing.
definitely.
It was a good start.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess I wanna talk about the pandemic, how that have affected your yoga teaching, but before that, I wanna maybe going parallel to that, your running journey. So, you were running quite a bit before you became a teacher, because becoming a teacher came a little later. So, with your, like, first qualifying for Boston, like, how did your running journey develop? Because I know you started running ultra racing
Yes.
and trail, so, like, how did your running develop to where it is right now for you?
So, it came out of essentially necessity. So,
Mhm.
after the bombings at Boston,
Mhm.
marathons became how airports became after 9/11. Like, when
Mhm.
big city marathons, people don't know it's now big city marathons, you would just walk up to the start line with your bib and they
Yeah.
would say go and you just run, and now it's like you have to check in with security, you're getting patted down, you're getting searched, and
Mhm.
it's like the logistics of just getting to the start line were it was starting to break me down. Like, I'm
Mhm.
like, "I'm just here to run in the middle of the road. Like,
Mhm.
why is there, like, dogs sniffing me and stuff?" Like, I
Mhm.
understand, like, that's the world we live in,
Mm.
but it started to kinda break me down, and then one
Yeah.
day, a friend, called me and was like, "Hey, I'm going up to the Poconos. I'm running a 50K at this state park." He's like, "You wanna go?" I was
Mhm.
like my races were over for the year. I was like, "I'll go." So I went to
Mhm.
REI, got a pair of trail shoes.
Mhm.
I get there, the race was like $30.
Mhm.
You parked like 10 feet from the start line. There was like 60 people, and I ran in the woods for 5 hours and waterfalls. I'm running through streams
Yeah.
and like I'm hopping over rocks, and once I finished, I was like, it's like
This
this
is
is
it.
it.
I'm not
Like,
going back.
I'm not going back. Like,
Yeah.
I did everything I needed to do
Mm.
in the like, in road running. I ran Boston a few times, like,
Mm.
I didn't need to, like, do anything else, like,
Mhm.
and I just found that ultras fit with the I felt like I was part of something
Mhm.
in nature and feeling those and in marathon running, it's all about your time. What's your time? What's your
Mhm.
marathon? What's your time? And you get to these ultras and like nobody cares like
Mhm.
what your time is. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like there are
Mhm.
competitive people and I'm somewhat competitive also,
Mhm.
but like you're just there. It feels like you're the only person in the race. You're just running
Yeah.
to see how far you can get from point A to point B,
Yeah.
getting over mountains and streams and rivers. And it's just a very ethereal feeling. It just feels
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah.
It was just laid back and
Mhm.
the aid stations have like grilled cheese and everybody there is just so supportive.
Yeah, yeah.
And I never really went back to the roads. Like every once in a while, like I'll go run a road race somewhere,
Uh-huh.
but I'm not like training for any kind of road races.
Mhm.
Um, and it really kind of took off. Like I started doing little small trail races. And
Yeah.
then the following year, I ran like my first like 40 miler. And then
Uh-huh.
I went, there's like a rite of passage in like
Uh-huh.
the Philly, Pennsylvania kind of
Yeah.
area where there's these like beginner level trail
Uh-huh.
races. And then you move up, you move up, you move up into these very difficult ones. I did the whole circuit of the most difficult Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
Triple Crown races, and then I started traveling. I've been to Montana. I did the hardest 50K in the country in the
Uh-huh.
rut. I've been to Utah,
Uh-huh.
Colorado.
Uh-huh.
I did a race I did a 100 miler in Idaho. We climbed the 7 highest peaks in Idaho, and
Uh-huh.
so I have done my
Yeah.
share of, like, just seeing some of the most beautiful things
Mhm.
in the world, and running has kinda taken me there.
Yeah. And, is a 100 miler the longest race? Have you done longer ones than that?
No, I've stayed at the 100 miler.
Uh-huh.
I think just deep down, I feel like I haven't, like, perfected it yet.
Yeah.
I like to kinda, like, stay at a distance, and once I feel like I kinda grasped it,
Mhm.
I'll kinda move on. There's the 200 milers, the 250. Sometimes it's just kinda like logistics, like those races, you just need a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
equipment, you need a crew. It's like a lot, and, like,
Uh-huh.
I like to keep I don't like to work too hard at getting,
Mhm.
like, the accessory stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want a vest, some bottles, me a start line, give me a finish line,
Yeah.
and something I can do myself that I don't wanna have to, like, get a team of people to
Yeah.
do. That's just me now, it might
Mhm.
change,
Uh-huh.
but I like just going someplace by myself and not knowing I need, like, poles and
Yeah.
certain, like, equipment. Like, I like to keep things bare minimum and
Mhm.
to see, kinda what I can do on my own. But that may change, you know what I mean? I
Uh-huh.
might maybe a year from now, like, I've been saying I'm gonna retire for the last, like, 5 years. It's like a running joke with my friends. Like, I always say, like, "This is my last 100," and I just sign up for something else. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? That's just the way I am.
Well, slightly staying with the running topic, training for something like 100 mile, like because I'm new to it, I'm just always curious. Like you're not trying to like you can't make your long runs that much longer in terms of training if you're still training for 100 or even longer, right? So like, how does training change from like let's say 50-mile race to 100-mile race? Because if you just make your long run longer, you're just going to be running all day long.
Yes, so it comes down to, at that point, 100 milers are basically become eating contests. It's basically, if you're able to consume calories,
Yeah.
you can continue. The problem is when you're not able to consume calories, you
Mhm.
can't finish. So, like,
Yeah.
when you get into 50, 60, 70 miles out there,
Yeah.
your stomach wants to reject everything.
Mm.
So it takes you to train your gut to be able
Mhm.
to handle calories. Because remember, when you run, blood gets drawn from your stomach and goes to your skin and your muscles because they need the
Yeah.
blood. So you don't have that. And that's what happened to me in my last race. I went a
Yeah.
little bit too hard and I threw up at mile 30, which
Uh-huh.
I always throw up in a race, but it's usually mile 90 because I'm
Uh-huh.
just sick of running at that point.
Yeah.
And it happened. And once I can't get calories down,
Mhm.
it becomes like a death march. So
Mhm.
when you most people, when what they do wrong in ultras
Mhm.
is, and it's the same thing as marathons,
Mhm.
you need to run the race you trained for.
Mhm.
So what happens is, like in a marathon, people train to run a 4-hour marathon. Then they
Mhm.
get to the start line, they get so excited, they bolt out and they try to
Mhm.
run, they think they can run a 3:30 marathon, and they
Mhm.
end up running a 6-hour marathon because they have to walk
Mhm.
the rest of the time.
Mhm.
So as a 100-mile, when you approach 100 miles, you just have to be in really good physical condition. You have to have a high
Mhm.
endurance, but you have to pace yourself accordingly. 100
Mhm.
miles is so long.
Mhm.
Like, we kind of just hear that number and we're like,
Yeah.
I think I got it. I think I got it. And then like you're like 30 miles in and you're
Mhm.
like, oh my, and you're tired and you're like, oh my God, I have 70 miles to go.
Mhm.
Like most people drop from a race right around like the 65 to 70 mile mark.
Yeah.
Cause most of these hundreds have a 50% drop
Mhm.
rate. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's just the way it is. They
Yeah.
don't, when you're out there,
Mhm.
it's so hard to wrap in your head because you're, like, so exhausted and you're like,
Yeah.
"I got another 12 hours of running to go over
Yeah.
mountains," and, like
Yeah.
so you have to be strong physically, you have to be able to consume calories,
Mhm.
and you just have to be smart in the way you move your body. Like, there are
Mhm.
some people who finish hundreds, they hike the entire time. Like, they know they're like, "I'm not a runner." They get
Mhm.
poles and they're able to hike really fast, and they
Mhm.
finish under the cutoffs because they
Mhm.
continuously move. And
Mhm.
there's people who think they're better than they are. They take off, and
Mhm.
then by mile 20, they're just shot, and then they're
Mhm.
struggling the rest of the race. So,
Yeah.
you can do anything you want to do as long as you run the race according to your fitness.
Mhm.
People go wrong where they think they're better than they are. They're
Yeah.
not honest with themselves. If you're
Mhm.
honest with yourself, I've seen people that like are not in very good shape at all,
Mhm.
but they do it by strategy. They know how to like get to point A to point B in a very efficient manner. And
Yeah.
they don't finish the race fast, but they get it done. They know how to get to
Mhm.
that 5 miles, that 5 miles, that 5 miles, and then they finish.
Mhm.
That's their thing. They get the 100 miler done, and
Yeah.
it's good. But being you have to be honest with yourself
Mhm.
and how fit you are and your ability.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
It's so interesting. And also I feel like I know you said physical fitness, but I think also I know you probably said it in different way, but the mental strength to be
Yes,
able to
just
continue
being
on.
smart. Yeah, like, so,
Yeah.
like, I know, like, I can wrap my head around
Mhm.
knowing that I know how to finish a 100 miler, right?
Mhm.
Like, so, like, I ran one last year, it was a flat one around a 3.5 mile loop,
Mhm.
and it was, like, 95 degrees, and then it was, and, like, I was pretty shot around, like, 70 miles or so, but,
Mhm.
like, I know how to get through the last 30 miles where, like, a lot of
Mhm.
people are just like, "I'm outta here."
Mhm.
It's just too overwhelming. So, like, I can mentally
Yeah.
say, like, I know how to get my body through 100 miles.
Yeah.
That's a very important thing to develop as a runner, to know that
Yeah.
you can do it. Your body's gonna be tired. No matter how much training you do,
Mhm.
you can be the best athlete in the world. 70, 80 miles in, you're gonna be exhausted no matter what.
Yeah.
So mentally, you just have to say one step at a time, push, push, push,
Yeah.
push, push, and you'll get there.
And how do you like that makes sense, but like if it's your first time, let's say running 100 mile, you don't have the lived experience of like, yes, I know I can run it because you haven't done it yet. So I feel like I'm still such a baby to your experience compared. I'm training for 50K. And then this past weekend, I ran 20 miles, which is about like 10 miles less than a real race would be. But at the end of 20 miles, I'm like, I don't know if I can run 10 more mile. This is like so 20 is already hard.
You can, you
Uh,
can. And it's very important that you progress
mhm,
in the correct way. Like, there's from 10K to a half marathon
mhm.
to that 50K. You start at that
Yeah.
50K, and then maybe you go to a 50 miler next.
Mhm,
But a very important thing in a 100 miler is picking the right 100 miler for you.
mhm.
So there's like entry level ones, there's mid level, and they'll say like on the description, like,
Yeah.
if you're not prepared,
Mhm,
you will not finish this race.
mhm,
They'll tell you. So I picked my first 100 miler was called Oil Creek, and it was in Erie, Pennsylvania,
mhm,
and it was a loop. So it was three 31-mile loops,
mhm,
and then it was a 7-mile loop on its own.
mhm.
So that was and it was like there was decent amount of climbing. There was like maybe 17,000 feet of climbing, but no
Yeah.
climb was more than like 150 feet. So you
Mhm,
were just kind of roller coastering up and down
mhm,
and coming back to like one aid station, one big hub
mhm.
every time just made it in my mind easier to kind of wrap my head around. Like I knew the
Yeah.
terrain by the third time. I knew every nook and cranny
Yeah.
and I can get to it. So like some people pick
Yeah.
too hard of a 100 miler.
Mhm,
I'm like, just pick one that's like kind of, that like I have a really good chance of finishing this. You look at like
mhm.
what other runners have to say. They're like, you'll
Mhm.
see like, this was my first one and it was a great experience.
Mhm.
Like you want to look for good volunteers. You want to look for a course that's marked really well that you don't have to like
Yeah.
really navigate. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
picking that is a very important thing to being successful. Like I just got lucky and I really picked a great first 100
Mhm.
mile where it was tough, but it was in my mind, I can manage
Mhm.
3 loops and then one 7 mile loop. It just felt
Yeah.
like I knew that would fit my kind of fitness. And
Yeah.
I trained really hard.
Yeah, I'm
Like
sure.
I did. Yeah.
And like sometime when I tell people that I'm a yoga teacher and I'm like, I'm training for a marathon, I'm training for ultra marathon, a lot of people get really surprised because I think for many people, maybe they don't think these two fit well together, or maybe some people might think they could indicate each other. So, what is your experience like of been running and practicing yoga and also teaching yoga? How has those two fit well for you? How has they worked well together? But also, maybe has there ever been challenges to have these hold space for both of these in your life?
Okay, so I look at my ultra running. I consider myself somewhat of a yoga purist. So, like,
Hmm.
I base my teaching, my own practice on the Upanishads, on just like
Hmm.
on the history of yoga, this withdrawing of the senses, this
Yeah.
fascinated by the history of yoga concerning aesthetics. Yogis who would stand on one leg for 3 years or hold their
Hmm.
arm above their head. Ever since the
Yeah.
beginning of time, human beings have pushed kind of the limits of what the body can do
Hmm.
in to attain these sort of higher levels of consciousness of what happens when I break the body down. I mean, I've been in races where I've been running for so long that I do hallucinate. So like there was
Hmm.
hallucinations and I see things and I experience moments in nature that are similar to when I sit in my meditation in the morning.
Yeah.
So yoga started as really an aesthetic practice. We have this sort of most people think yoga now is kind of this they have more of like a new age feel to yoga, this sort of like community and this like, a new age feel or more of a fitness type thing with yoga. But really yoga is rooted in that asceticism of almost tearing down the body in a sense where
Hmm.
these yogis would look to transcend or discover their, pure consciousness. We go back to Purusha through
Yeah.
aesthetic practices. And even the
Hmm.
ultra runners who don't practice yoga, I tell them all the time, I'm like, you're in this lineage
Hmm.
of people this is yoga, right?
Hmm.
100 miles, you need yoga. Like
Yeah.
it's not a downward facing dog, but it's you're doing like they didn't do a facing dog either. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They stood on one leg for 3 years to push their body to that limit. We've been doing this, the Greeks would do aesthetic practices, Native
Mhm.
Americans, you know what I mean? Indigenous
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
There's a long history of this and
Mhm.
me doing this is kind of an homage
Yeah.
to those aesthetics who really put themselves out there to find something else using these bodies that we have to
Mhm.
discover something about just who we are. And
Mhm.
when you completely fatigue yourself and
Mhm.
tear everything down, there's I've had just some moments that were so incredibly profound running through these old woods, these forests that you
Yeah.
can feel the history and you're like, there was something before us. And you know what I mean? Really feel you can feel it in those woods, in those
Mhm.
mountains.
Yeah.
And it's a very transcendent experience.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love how I never had anybody explain the connection of yoga with ultra running in that way before. That's such a beautiful way to explain it. So thank you for that. I'm gonna
You're awesome.
think about that when I'm running out in the trail next time.
Yes.
Have you I guess there's some comments sometime I hear from other people, or maybe I have it in my head sometime too, of like, if I do all this running, like all the, I don't know, stretching and range of motion I'm gaining or, trying to gain in yoga, I'm kinda like reversing it. Like I'm making my body tight again with running, and then yoga is trying to stretch it out. Or like maybe I get slight injured or niggles here and there from running that might make my yoga practice a little bit more challenging, talking about asana practice. And another part is like sometimes training for running takes a lot of time. You're investing a lot of your time, of your life into it. And how have you found to be able to balance yoga and running both in that physical sense and also time scheduling sense?
Okay, so you're right in the respect that running and yoga, like the physical act of running and the
Mhm.
physical part of yoga practice, they don't like traditionally kind of mix because as a runner, you almost want to be somewhat have rebound and be kind of tight
Yeah.
you don't want really
Mhm.
loose hamstrings.
Mhm.
And much of yoga, everybody's stretching their hamstrings 24 hours a day. Like if they
Mhm.
think everything you see is hamstring, hamstring, hamstring.
Yeah.
So, can I be the best physical practitioner of yoga and be an ultra at the same time? No. Like, I just can't. It just doesn't. You have to be one or the other, but I don't want to be like a contortionist yogi. Like,
Mhm.
I don't care about getting my foot behind my head. Right. And
Mhm.
I do warm ups of, doing that. Like, I do preparations for like behind the head preparations and I do, pretty some deep physical postures. But I have really retreated from trying to do very extreme things in yoga and even with like my ultra running. Like I used to race 20 times a year and now I race maybe three. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like because
Yeah.
my focus is more now on teaching
Yeah.
and practicing yoga, but my style of teaching and my own personal practice, my practice is more meditation, pranayama.
Mhm.
I might only have 10 physical postures in my practice. I make sure I protect my knees. I don't do a lot of like very like intense knee work with, lotuses and things like that. There's like some postures that I just don't need because why do I need them? Because again, like yoga, like it's
Mhm.
here, right? Like
Mhm.
even as when I teach, I'll teach some like intermediate classes but 99% of everything I do is a very functional thing. I look at, is this posture going to help this person
Mhm.
in their daily life?
Yeah.
Because really the yoga in a 60-minute class, the yoga takes place in the last 4 minutes of class when we're sitting in seated meditation or we're doing a pratyahara
Mhm.
exercise.
Mhm.
That's the yoga. The physical postures, we're just building that mental strength to concentrate, to be
Mhm.
mindful, to be in the moments. My physical practice has really been is a very minimal, I do a lot of yoga, but the movements I make sure that like, is this physically healthy for me? Because there's a lot of yoga postures out there that are not. Like they look
Mhm.
cool and they're fun, but like they're not there to help you pick up something off the ground without pain. So like
Yeah.
I try to find that balance of what's functional, what
Mhm.
is this posture just here for tradition or does it actually have a purpose? I
Mhm.
mean, and I also do like fun. I attempt fun stuff, but like I've kind of fallen back on
Mhm.
I don't need to do extreme things
Mhm.
in the yoga room, in class or even like teach them. My students kind of know like when they take a class from me, like we have a purpose for why we're doing what we're doing. And it's,
Yeah.
that to attain that higher level of consciousness I want everyone to leave that room a little bit better, not with knee pain or, you know what I mean? There's a lot of yogis
Mhm.
walking around there with hip replacements and knee replacements who thought what they were doing was healthy
Mhm.
and they were just grinding their joints away because they needed
Yeah.
to look a certain way. So
Mhm.
I'm very, very cautious. Running has made me more cautious in my yoga because I want to be able to do this until I'm 80 years old. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
want my knee, and so there's some yoga postures that I just don't teach anymore. I don't do
Mhm.
anymore, but I found a lot of beauty in just being very minimal in my practice.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I approach my practice in running.
No, I love that. And what do you say to, because I hear this one a lot too. What do you say to people from running such long distances and many hours and for a long period of time? Aren't you afraid you're going to have a hip or knee replacement later in life?
Yeah, that can happen. It's a bit like running 100 miles has nothing to do with health. It's
Mhm.
not good for you at all. Like I don't do this for health, right? I
Uh,
do this because it's a way I need to
yeah.
I most of my whole life I never really found what I was good at. I just kind of was there. I'm pretty good at running.
Mhm.
right? I'm good at teaching. So this is just fulfilling what I'm doing. Sometimes the thing that we do for, our passion isn't always the healthiest thing. I try to take the best care I can. I have compression boots, I have red light therapy, I have
Mhm.
a sauna blanket. I make sure I'm very diligent with my sleep. I'm very good at recovery, but there's a lot of runners out there who did run themselves into the ground. That's all they did. They ate poorly.
Mhm.
And I always take time off. I always take about a month and a half off every year of almost doing nothing. So
Mhm.
I take that time to really kind of heal everything. But most people who get really injured, a lot of times it's just genetic. They
Mhm.
might have bad cartilage in their knees. That was just whether they were runners or they were landscapers cutting grass. They were
Mhm.
going to end up with bad knees or bad hips no matter what. So
Yeah.
when we see, and even when we see like a runner like have a heart attack and die, that makes the front page news. Look, runner
Mhm.
dies. But that person probably had a heart defect. That person would have passed whether they're bringing in groceries to their house, and
Mhm.
probably running made him live even longer than they would have.
Mhm.
So things with knees and hips, if you abuse yourself in any way and too much, your body will fight back against you. It will,
Mhm.
but if you approach things in a somewhat, we all have risks and reward, just like a yoga
Mhm.
pose. You tell them like this yoga pose, it might be really good for you, but as you get into more advanced postures, there is a chance you might, tear your ACL or your MCL. If you do a lotus pose too much and you go
Mhm.
too far, you'll damage yourself. Just like with running, if you
Yeah.
progress too fast, you're going to hurt your knees. You're
Mhm.
going to get a stress fracture. This is the things we have to go through. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We all have to learn on our own. All of our bodies are different. My
Mhm.
body's different than your body. Some
Yeah.
people can run. I can run forever and never get injured, and some person can run and they just cannot get injured. They get injured,
Mhm.
and it's just they just weren't meant to run. Maybe they're a
Yeah.
better swimmer. Maybe they're
Yeah.
good at hiking. Maybe they're good at walking. Maybe they're just good at math. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we all have our gifts. I just happen to find mine, and I just maybe my body frame is just right.
Mhm.
My weight to height ratio is just right,
Mhm.
and I can just run and not really get really any injuries. I've had
Mhm.
injuries, but nothing where like I completely was like out of commission for like a year or anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a good point. I recently had a physical therapist who's also a yoga teacher teach a workshop for the mentorship program that I run. And she said that there's new research, more recent research that compared, I think, hip replacement amongst runners and non-runners. And what was it? There was a recreational runner, non-run, and there was like maybe professional runners or people who run a lot. I think recreational runner, she said, that had the least, like the percentage of that group getting hip replacement or knee replacement was the lowest.
Okay,
And then people who don't run and people who run a lot, I don't know which one was higher, but
they were
they were a
higher.
little bit more riskier.
They are.
But it was good research to say like don't be afraid to run if you're not a runner, because a lot of people think like, oh, it's gonna, grind my
Yes,
knees or hips, but actually it is like running is helpful in many
yes.
ways. Yeah.
And you remember, like, with professionals, like, that's
Yeah.
what they do for a living, so, like, always their weight is really low, like, so, like,
Yeah.
they don't always have, like, their nutrients
Uh-huh.
aren't balanced the way, you and I are. They have to push the limits of being as
Mhm.
skinny as they could possibly can to perform.
Yeah.
They were just, but they're just horror stories of their, like,
Mhm.
the stress fractures and hip replacements,
Yeah.
but that's what they do for a living.
Mhm.
So they put it all out there. Where recreational runners like, this is what I just do recreationally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to like do well. I want to be able to run with my friends.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
typically eat better. They don't not worried about their weight or trying to cut calories.
Mhm.
So it's a very that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
when
Well,
you do.
I'm curious about going back to your teaching journey. When you first started mentoring with your teacher and started teaching, subbing for her, or started teaching, getting a classes to teach, what was your transition like before your job and what you were doing as a furniture? You were helping move
Yep.
furnitures to
Yep.
becoming a full-time teacher. Was that a slow transition? Was it a drastic transition? So what was that like?
So it was like I was teaching for like 3.5 years and
Mhm.
still working my job.
Mhm.
And like, so at that point, I think I was teaching I was just teaching like 3 classes a week, running like 75, 80 miles a week and
Mhm.
working a full-time job. And
Mm.
then, like,
Wow.
as I was, like, getting more sort of popular, I started teaching at another studio, and then I think I was teaching 5 classes a week, running. So sometimes I would wake up at, like, 3 in the morning, run 15 miles, go to work, come home from work, teach, and I have a
Yeah, yeah.
daughter. Like, it was just
Yeah.
like, I mean, it was nonstop. Like, it
Mhm.
was it was a lot. And then I just same thing like that, those instincts where I was like, anybody who has ever been able to do what they love for a living, whether you're a writer or an artist
Mhm.
or, whatever, they just was like, fuck it, let's just go for it. Like,
Mhm.
they were like, drop everything. I'll live in a basement. I'll just, I don't care about
Mhm.
money. And I'll just like, let me write, let me paint, do whatever. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm like, I think I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit my job. And like,
Mhm.
I was there 22 years, so I had, like, 6 weeks vacation. I had a great
Mhm.
retirement pay, like, I had all this stuff, and, like, I remember, like, when I was kinda, like, saying, like, "I think I might leave in February," like, the guys at work were like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, why would
Mhm.
you ever leave here?" They're like, "You
Mhm.
got it so good." I was like, "I can't do this." I'm like, "I
Yeah.
need to take a chance."
Yeah.
When I was about to do it and I was kinda scared, somebody said to me, they're like, "Listen, this is America. If you fall on your face with yoga, if it doesn't work out, you can get a job anywhere. Like, you're never gonna
Mhm.
starve to death." You know what I mean? Like, you're always gonna have a roof over your head. Your Target is hiring all the time. Like, you don't like, might not be the job you want, but,
Mhm.
like, you'll be okay, right? So, like, the fact of, like, knowing that, like, you'll always kinda be okay if you can kinda work. This is you know what I
Yeah.
mean? We live one good thing about this country is, like, you can find something,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, "Screw it, I'm leaving," and
Mhm.
I just went full in, and, I started taking on more classes because I had more can teach more,
Yeah.
and so I've been doing that 3.5 years. So February was 3 years of me being a full-time teacher.
Uh-huh.
So I'm, 3.5 years into teaching full-time, and, I teach at 3 studios, and,
And how
I
many classes did you, like, teach at the beginning of your full-time teaching time versus now? And
uh
that was, like, during the pandemic, that past 3 years?
So the pandemic, so it was
Uh-huh.
like, I guess, like, before we got back in the studio, I think it was like a solid, I don't know,
Mhm.
6 months to a year. Like,
Mhm.
I was doing, like, little online things, and they started having, like, outdoor classes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then once, like, luckily, like, we were very aggressive, like, whenever the governor, like, allowed
Yeah.
something else, we were, like, right on it. Like, outdoor
Yeah.
classes, 25 people, outdoor classes.
Yeah, yeah.
So anything we can kinda do, and then
Mhm.
once they opened up to, like, people can come inside, I started teaching, like, 17 classes a week,
Yeah, a lot.
and then, like, so now I teach, like, 14.
Mhm.
But also, like, I'm lucky in the respect that, like, working all those years, like, I did okay financially. Well, I guess I did okay, but, like, I was just very smart with, like, my
Mhm.
money. I didn't have any debt. I didn't have a
Yeah.
car payment, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
everything was like, I was okay where, like, I wasn't, like, like, we're like, "Oh my god, I got all these bills." I really had nothing, so I lived very, very minimally. Like,
Mhm.
I went full yogi, like, I had
Mhm.
nothing, like, I went, like, no possessions, like, I'm like, if I'm gonna do like, the difference between either waking up in the morning and lifting heavy stuff all day or doing what I love and having,
Mhm.
like, not being able to buy any possessions, I'll take the no possessions all day long, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I don't need anything. I've had everything, that I have that I need to, like, live
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
but the yoga just comes first. It's
Mhm.
just, I'm living in this life, and, um I still have no idea how much money I make. I just know my bills somehow get paid. So
Yeah,
so to
yeah.
be honest with you, like, I'm not very good. Like, all I know is, like, I'm okay and things are good, and, they haven't turned off the lights yet. So, like,
Uh-huh.
it's and I
Mhm.
don't like, I do workshops here and there, but I haven't gone into, like, the world of, like, retreats. Like, that's kinda the next step.
Yeah. Yeah.
But honestly, like, if I do, I do. If I don't, like,
Uh-huh.
I like teaching and I like having bare minimal stuff and
Yeah.
not having anything
Uh,
but knowing I wake up every day and I get to do what I love,
mhm.
that's worth more than any kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
financial. Like I don't need any material possessions. Like I have what I need. And if I need something, I save up for it and I get it. But
Mhm,
really, I don't at this point in my life. I have clothes. I have a roof over my head. I got friends.
mhm.
I got great students and
Yeah.
I really enjoy living every single day.
Yeah. And also, I feel like obviously having the roof overhead, paying all the bills, but also being able to support your hobby or passion of running too, right? Like so you can still sign up for races and you can still continue that passion too.
Yeah, so I did the one I work at a running store like
Mm.
3 times a month. So the last 3 Saturdays of the month, I work at a running store and I pretty much get we get a lot of perks like free
Uh-huh.
shoes and,
Nice.
heavy big discounts. So and it's
Yeah.
fun. Like I just hang out on I work the last 3 Saturdays. I hang out, and it's just
Uh-huh.
you just talk running all day and you
Yeah.
need a lot of like reps from like Nike or like Diodora, like all these like shoe reps from
Mhm.
Brooks and stuff. So like you develop these good relationships of like yoga and running where that has kind of like merged
Yeah.
into like I made a lot of great relationships with reps from shoe companies and you know what I
Mm.
mean? So I don't have to worry about like clothing and things like that. So like it's all I so it's wild that like I spent so many years doing something I hated, and now I work at a running store and I teach yoga for a living. So
Yeah.
it's never too late to kind of do like, and I did all this at the age of 40, really. Like, so most
Mhm.
people think like you get to a certain age and you just like I can't take a teacher training. I can't do this. And
Mhm.
like you before you know it, like the training's over and you're doing it. Like people
Mhm.
start new careers at 60 years old. Like there's
Yeah.
never if we keep waiting and waiting and waiting, we're just gonna have regrets. So like anymore, like when something comes up, a training I want to go to, I'm going. Like I'm getting
Mhm.
that certification or I'm doing this. Like
Yeah.
I know now that like 2 months out of your life is nothing. Going to a training for 2 months or doing this, taking these courses or whatever.
Yeah.
Just do it. Don't think you're too old or
Mhm.
it's too late.
Yeah.
It takes no time and before you know it, you've got it and then you can
Mhm.
use it, to help
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, to tell the listener and myself a little bit about Ghosh Yoga, like how did you? It seems like you have transitioned, used to teach more of a Bikram or 26 and 2 style, and you have transitioned to Ghosh Yoga. And I know there was really inspirational teachers you had. And tell the listener what it is, what made you pursue that direction more, and yeah, that
Okay.
journey.
So Scott and Ida, they
Mhm.
call themselves Ghosh Yoga. They're from Minnesota, but they were originally sort of like Bikram yogis back, a while ago, a long time ago. And they took a training with a guy named Tony Sanchez. Tony Sanchez was like Bikram's best student from like the 1970s. And
Mm.
he broke away from Bikram in the 70s and kind of started his own thing.
Mhm.
No dialogue, very sort of more of an intuitive way to teach yoga.
Mhm.
So they took his training, just saw like a different side of like teaching. And
Yeah.
then they actually went to the Ghosh College. So Bishnu Ghosh was
Mhm.
from the 1920s, early 1900s. He was a guru in
Mhm.
India, northern India, and his
Mhm.
brother was Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. So
Mm.
that's this Goshen. They were Kriya yogis. And so this style of yoga, when they went to Gosha's college, they realized that there is more than just 26 postures. Like it was
Mhm.
just a center for physical culture and learning.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so they kind of carried on this tradition of breath work, posture. So where most vinyasa would be like Southern Indian, where it's like the postures are synced together.
Mhm.
Northern Indian yogis were very inspired by the early British strongmen of the early 1900s, where
Mhm.
they would lift a heavy weight, they would
Mhm.
put it down, and they would rest. So
Mm.
Bishnu Ghosh was very interested in these strongmen. So
Mhm.
you see these strongmen, and he adopted yoga and
Mhm.
the same philosophy as these strongmen. You would hold a
Mhm.
posture in stillness, you would come out, you would relax for a moment, and then you either do a second set or another
Mm.
posture. So,
Mhm.
where we have more of a static practice
Mhm.
than sort of vinyasa, where you kind of sync movements together, downward
Yeah.
facing dog, chaturangas. There's no chaturangas.
Mhm.
And so every class I can kind of adapt every class to who's in my room. We
Mm.
could start very basic. We start on the floor, warming up the spine, the abdomen, the hips. So I took their 200-hour training.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was a hybrid. It was 4 months
Mhm.
online, and then we met in Florida for a week
Mhm.
in person, and I learned just very a lot of philosophy, history,
Mhm.
and what I like. They really changed my life in the fact that they never gave us their opinion on yoga. They
Mhm.
just told us this is what it says. This is
Mhm.
what the Upanishads say. This is what Bhagavad Gita says.
Mhm.
This is what the Yoga Sutra says. They didn't give us their opinion or sort of like a new age twist on it. They just said,
Mhm.
here is what it is. What you do with it is up to you. We don't
Mhm.
care what you do after this. We don't have to name our classes a certain thing. They just taught us yoga postures. They taught us history, philosophy, pranayama, and what we do with it is up to us.
Mhm.
And so right after that, my teaching really improved after that 200-hour. And then I did their 300-hour advanced training. And that was basically like a college course. Like
Mhm.
I had to do a research paper, I had to do an oral presentation on a yoga topic, book
Mhm.
report. So that was 5 months online and then 2 weeks in person, 8 hours a day,
Mhm.
4-hour practice in the morning, and we did a 4-hour physical practice every morning, and it
Wow.
really was just so intense. They really pushed us really to our we were pushed to our limits physically and mentally, like sitting sometimes in those the first hour was like pranayama and meditation, sitting cross-legged for like an hour when you're not really used to it. Like
Mhm.
it really the first few days were just really, really tough.
Mhm.
And then like as soon as I got my body kind of adapted, I really went into places that in my mind that I never went to before.
Mhm.
They're able to see things in me that I didn't know existed, but they never took credit. They'll never take credit for it.
Mhm.
They, in their very subtle way, made me believe in myself
Yeah.
like nobody has ever done. Like they they are teachers in the most traditional sense. Like a teacher is just someone who passes on knowledge. And they instilled that humility in me of I'm a teacher, I'm a yoga teacher. Sometimes people call themselves like yoga instructors or yoga facilitators. I'm a teacher.
Mhm.
I pass knowledge to my students. I
Mhm.
know I'm very versed in history and philosophy, and taking that advanced training, I have a purpose. Like my purpose in my personal practice and in teaching is simple. I want to attain that level of samadhi. I want to,
Mhm.
like, that is my goal. It's not to do a handstand. It's not, I want to return back to that pure consciousness. And
Mhm.
when I teach my class, which is it's a very difficult environment now where everything is about how hot the class can be, how much can I sweat, how much is this a workout? People are looking at their Apple watches to see how many
Mhm.
calories they burned.
Mhm.
My teaching, when you take a class from me, I am teaching you in a way we're giving you the tool to return back to that pure consciousness, to give you the tools to maybe if you want to take those steps to samadhi, those steps. That's
Mhm.
what I teach. I don't do
Mhm.
Dharma talks, just we start the class, every same thing. Pranayama breathing, physical postures, meditation.
Mhm.
Music, I barely speak because if you're listening to me, you're not listening to yourself. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So, like, when you're sitting in meditation, if I'm telling you how to meditate, you're just listening to me tell you how to meditate. You're
Mhm.
not meditating. So, like,
Yeah.
I try to be as minimal as possible. And I've lost students and I've gained students. When
Mhm.
I went to more of this more contemplative practice, my class numbers dropped
Mhm.
because people exercise is the popular thing. Everybody wants to sweat. Everybody wants to burn calories. They want to use yoga as in their exercise. And I'm not an exercise teacher,
Mhm.
right? I think there's something more. I mean, I exercise myself. I'm a runner, like I
Mhm.
like intensity, but yoga to me there is something that's yoga and there's something that's not yoga. Not everything that's called yoga is yoga. It is something.
Mhm.
And we've gotten to the point where everyone can just say like, "Oh, I think this is yoga." Well, it's not. You know what I mean? Like there is and there isn't. Like you
Mhm.
can't just call something something. To me, it carries a lot of weight. When you
Mhm.
put that word yoga in front of your class, that means something. There were people a few thousand years ago who, again, stood on one leg for years. People who sat in caves and secluded themselves from the world to bring what we have now.
Mhm.
And we owe it to them to have some kind of reverence for the people that did those things.
Yeah.
They try to they took on the task of who am I, right? That's
Mhm.
like the big question, right? Who am I? And that's a very special thing that they kind of took on. Some of them left their families and lived in caves for 20 years and sat with their eyes closed and they were just trying to know who they were. Here we are now in the present time, and we're in this kind of muddled space where people aren't sure. People have an idea of what yoga is, but it might be just kind of like it's not really yoga. It might be just exercise. And exercise is fine. If you want to go to class for exercise, that's fine. But when I'm teaching, I want to teach that gives reverence to those people a few thousand
Mhm.
years ago who really put it all on the line. And there's something really special about standing there in silence and stillness. We need to be constantly entertained now. We have our phones, we have TV, we need a playlist, we need music. Yoga to me, I want my yoga class to be the most boring goddamn class in the world because we don't know how to be bored anymore, right? We need rock music
Yeah.
playing. We need all this stuff. I'll tell you the most powerful badass thing you can do. Stillness is a radical act. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? We don't know how to be
Mhm.
still anymore. We don't know how to
Yeah.
be silent. We need to always hear something. We need to be entertained. I'm trying to break all that, and trying to
Mhm.
break all that, it's put my yoga teaching kind of at risk. Like, class numbers going down.
Mhm.
I'm still consistent, but I've had the same people,
Mhm.
and those are the people that get it. Like,
Mhm.
they know when they come to my class, like, they know exactly what they're getting.
Yeah, yeah.
And I won't waver that for anything. I won't change the name of my class. I won't go, "Oh, if you just do this, you might have more people." I don't care.
Mm.
Like, if I can't do this the way I'm doing it, I won't do it at all.
Mhm.
But you'll always find your people and you'll have your ups and downs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it was very hard when I stopped teaching Bikram. Like, I had people that just kind of were like, "I don't want to know anything else you're doing." They were just gone.
Mhm.
And that happens and it hurts.
Mhm.
But again, I was trained by yoga teachers. I am a yoga teacher, and I'm trying to fulfill that duty of passing on knowledge to the people to come to my class, whether it's 2 people in there or 50 people in there.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing is right, and I have a purpose. You just have to it can be very slow at times. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, if I don't I'm very slow in progressing my students' physical postures. We build very foundational strength in our movement and our breathing. But if you just kind of hang with me, you're going to do those cool things that you see, but
Mhm.
you're going to really appreciate it when you get there. So
Mhm.
that's really, once I graduated from their 200 and 300 hour, they just instilled that belief in myself and just gave me a good example of how to give that to my students. And again,
Mhm.
they would never take credit for any of my success.
Mhm.
You know, they're the teacher stands in the background. We're just back
Mhm.
here. It's about you guys.
Mhm.
It's not about us. And I just try to do the same exact thing, having that humility of like sometimes like being a yoga teacher, I'll have student be like, "Oh, you helped me so much. You saved, you get a lot of people who come to yoga that are a lot of people are broken and sad, and I don't like when people say, "That yoga saved my life or healed me." I'm like, "You did it." Like, you
Mhm.
would have found it no matter what. You would have found it doing 100 push-ups in the morning. You would have found it walking up a mountain. You would have found it sitting in a park cross-legged every day. You would have found it in yoga. If you want to heal, the modality was just a modality, but it's
Mhm.
you who actually heal yourself. You would have found it in anything, riding your bike. If you
Yeah.
believe in it enough, you're going to do it. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where I am now and
Mhm.
how I was trained. And it's a very, I love every day going into class and knowing that everything I'm doing is kind of like my own creation, right? I'm creating
Yeah.
my own sequences, my own, structure of classes, how I
Mhm.
teach, the way I speak. And
Mhm.
they instill just the foundations for me, but they gave me the tools to kind of move on to my own thing. And they
Mhm.
would never like take credit for anything I'm doing.
Mhm.
They train me. I listened. I do my thing, and they're proud of me for that.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. The fact that you said the teachers saw something in you that at the time you didn't see it in yourself. And that just reminded me of one of my teacher. Her name is Annie Carpenter, but she says like teachers like it's like a mirror. We're trying to reflect back on you the light that's within us that sometimes we forget that it's there. But the teacher's job is to like reflect that light back to you. It's like, hey, you have this light, and it's in you. Um,
Sometimes we need somebody
yeah,
on the out, just so you know, like just how that's why the best athletes in the world have coaches. Like
yeah,
we have people who who want to get better. They have people who see something that they have an objective view of somebody. They'll say to you,
yeah,
like, I think you can do this or this or this. And you're like, I don't know if I can do that. But they
yeah.
see it. And sometimes that placebo or that little push,
Mm.
it gets you there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And sometimes, yeah, we need that teacher or that third person perspective who has that wisdom to like tell you so or to see that part of you that you don't see yourself.
Oh
And
yeah.
another part that I wanted to respond to was how you say you teach very simple, no music. There's no Dharma talk, and you're just teaching, like the meditation, pranayama, asana. And you say, like, I'm not a fitness teacher. So I really appreciate that because especially, I'm sure it is similar where you are, but I live in LA where fitness is very popular and a lot of yoga classes are turning into fitness classes. And I'm also trying to step away from playing music these days in my class. And a lot
It's
of my
hard.
it's hard, and a lot of
It
my
is.
teachers that I look up to, the senior teachers I look up to, not all of them, but some of them said, like, "You don't need to give dharma talk. Like, the practice itself is you're learning the dharma from the practice itself." And their philosophy is like, well, I teach philosophy. They teach philosophy in their teacher training or a weekend workshop, but they don't
There you
bring it
go.
in so much into the asana class, group asana class that they teach. I just appreciate the simplicity of like we're gonna do asana and that within itself and paying attention to where your mind goes. That is already like a beautiful philosophy practice or teachings that you're receiving. So I really appreciate that what you said, and I also want to agree with you that it is hard in this time, this in this modern day world of. I feel like students are expecting yoga teachers to be their entertainer and loud music and dancing, or maybe they want a six pack, they want to sweat, they want to see how much calories they burned. And I feel like sometimes I'm swimming upstream with what I really feel true to how I want to teach and still respecting the lineage of where it comes from and trying to teach it in the modern day world. So I hear you, what you said. It's not easy. And you said you have lost some students, but then you are building back up, and students who are here now is they're now because they really want to learn from your current teaching, like how you teach now, and that's what they appreciate. And I really like how you said that this is the only way I want to teach. Like if I had to teach it any other way, I wouldn't want to teach. So I think that inner knowing or that strong knowing that this is how I feel like I'm in alignment. This is my purpose, my dharma. I think I admire that and respect that. So I'm sure students see that in you as well. And when you start teaching the way that feels in aligned to you, you might lose some students in the beginning, like you said, but then the right students will find you, and they'll probably or will be there to stay for a while.
There is like there's always like everything ebbs and flows. So like
Mm,
right now, everything has to be the most intense thing. There you'll see yoga, Pilates, sculpt, and like
mm,
they'll add any kind of fitness thing to yoga sculpt, yoga hit, all this kind of stuff. And there's gonna be a giant blowback to all that. Like that's like like everything now is like just like working out, but eventually everything it becomes too much. And once people realize that most people I think work out too hard,
mm,
they don't. They do a very hard class every single day. They take and then like they don't look so good. They always look kind of run down or like they don't look great.
mhm,
And I don't like to really preach to anybody, you know what I mean? Because I like to let them find their own kind of like mistakes that they're making. But like people are like when me as a runner, like 90% of all my runs are very easy runs. They're very
mhm,
slow. Like I don't run hard intervals every day. I don't beat myself on the ground every day. But A lot of people, they take a HIIT class every morning, they take a spin
Mhm.
class every morning, they take a hard yoga class that has to have weights in it, every single day, and it's not there's gonna be this giant blowback, I think, and I just kinda tell some of the yoga teachers who are doing the real work
Mhm.
that eventually, like, it's gonna be your time to shine because
Yeah.
they'll come back to that because there's this amazing thing that's happening now, like, the worlds of science and physics and philosophy, all you're seeing now is, like, studies on consciousness and being and ego and self. You're seeing these, like, worlds colliding and, like, hey, like, the yoga thing's been doing that for a long time, and so,
Mhm.
like, last year I had my partner and I, we had a workshop, and it was about, meditation, consciousness, mindfulness, and it's sold out, and people
Mhm.
were just, like, enamored with, like, alternate nostril breathing, and
Mhm.
I was trying to, like, all these things are just tools to help you turn inward, to pull the
Yeah.
senses inward, and they still can't, like, stop talking about that one workshop they went to. It was a 4-hour workshop, and we got into, the Samkhya philosophy and, like, Purusha and consciousness and all this kind of stuff, and so it's there.
Yeah.
It's just the messaging, it's hard to get that messaging to put into words of, like, we're doing something here that's
Yeah.
pretty, like, I kinda tell people that when you see, like, those parts of the Yoga Sutra, they talk about these sort of, like, metaphysical powers that these yogis develop and these, like, supernatural powers. I'm like, that's really just kind of flow state. That's
Mhm.
how when you see great athletes who can do no wrong out there,
Mhm.
that's what those yogis were doing. They were in that moment where every distraction was removed. So sometimes I kind of mention to my students, like, if you kind of listen to the cues of what I'm saying and the breathing practices, you will start to experience those same feelings that Michael Jordan feels where he
Mhm.
can't do anything wrong on that basketball court. That's
Yeah.
really those athletes who are so good. They are just able to block every distraction out. And
Yeah.
that's simply what Patanjali was saying in the Yoga Sutras.
Yeah.
When you remove all distraction, you return to who you are, your true nature. And if you, some of them are like, if you have never played a sport in your life and you want to feel that feeling, you can,
Mhm.
but you got it ain't easy, right? The
Mhm.
concept is simple. The execution is very difficult because
Yeah.
we're constantly drawn outward. We're
Mhm.
constantly distracted.
Mhm.
But if you work on the simple act of concentration, you'll begin to experience the world as it truly is, right? We were
Mhm.
told in our training that, meditation's about tearing down the filters that our mind has created filters from the way we were raised, the way we were taught,
Mhm.
the world around us. We see the world how we want to see it. But through
Mhm.
meditation, you see the world as it truly is. That's why I see those
Mhm.
monks that had this sort of, like, blissful look on their face because they see the world as they see colors the way they really are. They see the sky, the sun, they feel the wind differently.
Yeah.
You can experience that same thing, but it's not easy. It
Mhm.
doesn't come It's not found in the playlist, it's not found in the Dharma talk.
Mhm.
You simply have to sit there, cross your legs, close your eyes,
Mhm.
and just focus on breath. And
Mhm.
if you do that enough, the payoff, there's nothing else. There's nothing
Mhm.
else like it. I've experienced moments like that in my running. I've experienced moments like that in my meditation, and I can't even physically put into words what that feeling is.
Mhm.
And my only hope is that my students take some of the things I teach them and maybe just for a split second feel that feeling of bliss
Yeah.
because it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Well, oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm like listening to you and it's like, well, so many beautiful um golden nuggets that you're sharing and also such a beautiful inspirations for me and hopefully the listeners too. So I guess to wrap up, I'm on this like slight bliss state after that conversation. I'm like, oh, this is so good. I just want to like go sit and meditate or go for a run in the trail. But maybe tell the listener, you said like you mostly teach group classes, you have done workshop and maybe doing more workshop trainings and retreat is something you are wanting to do in the future. So tell a little bit about like where do you see your yoga teaching career as going towards? What do you want to do in the future?
Well,
Mhm.
I'm terrible at technology. but I'm finally starting a Patreon.
Uh-huh.
So that's going to start, I guess, next Monday. I have a
Mhm.
kind of the page set up.
Yeah.
I that's like it's a very big step for me because I don't like to be taken out of my comfort zone with stuff that like I can run for days. I could teach a million classes, but when it comes down to like chat GPT and membership things and things like
Yeah.
that, like my mind just kind of goes. Next Monday, I'll officially kind of launch my Patreon. I'm going to start doing some like, short classes,
Mm.
writing some articles, putting out some content, regularly. So that's my next big thing.
Nice.
Other than that, I'll probably be doing some workshops. My partner and I'll be doing some workshops in the fall. And other than that, I'm just going to keep really focusing on my personal practice. But
Mhm.
everything I learn, I'm constantly like every day is like probably an hour and a half of reading. I'm immersed in always in yoga philosophy. So I'm learning all the time
Uh-huh.
and as a teacher, whatever I learn, I pass on to my students. So we're gonna have
Yeah.
some cool things coming up in the fall, and hopefully, maybe I'll start traveling a little bit and visiting some studios. So I would love to, if any yoga studios want to, yeah, come in for the weekend or for any workshops or just random classes. I
Mhm.
would start to love to travel a little bit more, and other than that, just kind of doing my thing.
I feel like, I mean, that all sounds amazing and exciting, but I definitely feel like I see in your near future, I feel like some like training. I feel like you should train teachers. It seems like there's a lot of passion there for you. And talking about retreat, I was like, you should do like yoga and like trail running retreat.
That well,
That would be really cool.
my friend Gags, who I did the first ever podcast with, where like I
Mhm.
did his podcast. He's a runner. He's called the Running Times Podcast. When I did his
Mhm.
podcast 3 years ago,
Yeah.
that really enabled me to. It was the first time I really told my story publicly,
Yeah.
and that enabled me to teach full time because right after that podcast, my classes just exploded. Once
Mhm.
people kind of saw like why I run 100 miles or why I teach yoga, they
Yeah.
saw like my backstory.
Yeah.
So him and I have always, we're kind of in our minds, want to do like a
Yeah.
running and yoga retreat. It's just putting it down and finding like the right time.
Mhm.
And, like there's a lot of stuff that goes in. And I'm very diligent on like, I need to do things right.
Yeah.
I don't want, so I know everybody, we
Mhm.
make mistakes, we screw
Uh-huh.
up. Everybody's first retreats are probably like all
Yeah.
crazy and stuff like that. Again, we'll give it a shot and
Yeah.
we would definitely love to do that.
Yeah, and I feel like I haven't seen anyone else with that kind of retreat before, so that could be something new and different to tap into that nobody else is doing.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And another question is in terms of running, I know you just had your 100 miler that it didn't go as planned, but
Now,
what's your next goal, or do you have any race that you're looking into that's coming up or you want to do?
yeah, so I'm going to do a 50K in October. Um, it's called the Green Monster. It's in Pennsylvania. There's like 70, like almost 8,000 feet of climbing in the
Mhm.
50K. So it's very
Wow.
difficult. And I may with my friend Faith. She's another ultra runner. Last year we ran an 85-mile loop to set the fastest known time. She was going for the fastest known time for a female, and I ran with her.
Mhm.
It took us 25 hours. She beat the record by like 10 hours.
Wow.
So there's another trail that's like very, very difficult, and she keeps sending me all this like crazy shit that I'm like, oh my god. So I usually just say thing about me when one of my friends asks me to do something, I just say yes.
Uh-huh.
Whether like I'll be like, if they need something, I'll do it, even if it's running 100 miles unsupported in the most horrible, brutal rattlesnake, bear infested terrain in the world. I'm like, all right, when are we doing it? And I'll just go. So it's nice being at the level, having all these miles under my legs that like
Uh,
when somebody has an adventure planned,
yeah.
I'm usually kind of ready to go. Like I'm
Yeah.
always I'm always in like maintenance mode. So like one of
Uh-huh.
my friends have some crazy ass idea.
Uh-huh.
Um I'm like, oh, all right, whatever. When do you want me there? So we might be doing something crazy November.
Uh-huh.
So than that, I'm gonna do maybe 1 or 2 things and then,
Uh-huh.
take a few weeks off in December, January, and
Mhm.
then plan the next year. We'll see what
Mhm.
kind of, I might start traveling again, doing a
Mhm.
race. So I might
Mhm.
start looking at maybe something in Colorado or
Okay.
Montana and get
Mhm.
back out there. And even
Mhm.
California. My friend got into Western states.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go out to Western states, 100 in California in June
Okay.
to be his pacer and his crew.
Nice.
So he got into that. So I'm gonna go out there, probably and help him. I've never been to California.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna go out there for the first time and, give him a hand. Uh,
Nice.
when's your 50K?
So I have a little challenge right now at the moment. So was gonna do a 50K in end of September, and a few days later, I already have plane tickets to go travel to Japan. So I was gonna be gone traveling for about a month after my 50K.
Okay.
But what happened was recently, like last week, I found out that my 50K race organizer changed the date of the race to a month later.
Oh, wow.
So now I can't run that race anymore, and I wasn't planning to train while I'm traveling. So I'm thinking of possibly just, like, doing my own 50K, and I'm sure for somebody like you, it's like, "Oh, 50K is like, you can probably do that on Sunday."
It's miles or miles,
Yeah.
wherever it is and how you wanna do it and the thing you take on, but that would be a really fine, like, a nice trail, maybe in, like that's, like, maybe 6 or 7 miles, you can kinda do it a few times or
Yes.
one continuous loop, like, with all the technology now with, like, the Garmin
Mhm.
mapping system, like, you can
Yeah.
really like, I love doing things on my own, like
Mhm.
50Ks, 50 milers where, like, it's free, you just do it yourself and, like,
Yeah.
it's a thing, it's no different than a race, like, you go out
Yeah.
there and you're doing your thing, like, that's the way to go.
Yeah, and I was just gonna
Yeah.
yeah, what you said, like, maybe make my car as my aid station and
There you
just do a
go.
couple different laps and keep coming back to my car for a refill of water and food. But
Yeah,
it's just a little different 'cause there's no, like, energy of the race. But I feel like I've been training so much and so hard for this training block that I don't wanna just stop and retrain again next year with another training block, but I feel like I wanna make use of this training that I've done so far,
an
so
absolute that they're some of
okay.
the best experience I ever had, like, especially during COVID when everything was canceled.
Yeah.
Me and my friends met all the time, and just did sort of what they call fat ass races, where it's just we just meet
Uh-huh.
and we have a route and we set up like an aid station
Yeah.
and we just run and like they were some of the best runs and races I've ever done
Mm.
because there's a purity to it. We didn't pay anything and it was
Yeah.
just people out there running. And and with social media now, it feels like you ran a race because you can be like, "Hey, look at you post your time, you
Yeah,
have your
yeah.
pictures running on top of a mountain, like, and people love it because it's such a like, it's a very yogic thing because
Yeah.
you're just you don't get a
No
buckle, you don't get a
yeah,
medal, it's just you, and you're out there, and you're like and you're doing what 9.99% of people aren't doing. Like,
yeah,
you're doing
yeah.
something special, you're putting yourself out there, so, like, do it up.
Okay, thank you for saying that because 'cause I've
Oh,
been
yeah.
kinda on the fence, and some people are saying
No.
this, and some people are saying this, but now that you have said that and you have kinda like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it."
That's the real deal.
Okay, I'm going to do it, and then it's
Alright.
nice that I get to choose my own route, I can go somewhere
Pick your
beautiful that I
challenge.
like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay, thanks for that push, Steve. I'm gonna
You
do
got
it,
it.
and I'll let you know when it's done. I'm gonna also follow you on Strava. I think you have Strava, right?
I have Strava, follow me on
Okay.
Strava, yep.
Okay, I'll definitely follow you. Okay, so tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you or they want to see your offerings or different things that you have going on. So I'll make sure to
Um,
link all of that on the show notes.
you can, I'm mostly my main thing is my Instagram, run 2805 project. I put that in show notes. I left in my email that you can print in the show notes,
Okay.
there. I teach at Eclipse Hot Yoga in, Collingswood, Hot Flow Studios in Voorhees, and Hot Yoga Sutra in West Philly.
Okay.
And I available for privates and all that kind of stuff. So,
And
I'm available
Patreon coming soon.
Patreon is, coming up and, the big step for me, so my Patreon, I'll be putting a lot of content there, and that's it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Steve. This conversation has been really fun for me and also inspiring. And thanks for the push to do that 50K even without a race.
You got
And
it.
I'll keep you posted, and I'll also let you know when this episode's coming out. Thank you so
Great.
much for your time.
This was a great, conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast episode, the conversation I had with Steve. As you heard in the conversation, that at the time of the interview is when I just found out that my 50K trail race that I was hoping to sign up was canceled or postponed, and I was no longer able to run that race. And I was still on the fence of whether I wanted to run 50K on my own or wait to sign up for another race, which means I'm going to have to train kind of all over again. It was speaking to him that solidified my decision to run the 50K on my own. It was so nice for him to encourage me to do it, and I'm really happy with my decisions. Thank you, Steve, for encouraging me. And even off the camera, he has given me a couple amazing tips and advice and just encouragement in my running. So, Steve, you're so inspiring. Thank you so much. And I also appreciated what he shared about the teaching of yoga and how he really wants to teach. The teaching that he feels is he believes in, and he wants to teach in a way that's authentic to him. Even if that means it's not popular, even if that means he have lost students, he only want to teach the way he believes in. Otherwise, he doesn't want to teach at all. And I thought that was so courageous for him to say that, because it's difficult in this time where I feel like I have pressure to teach yoga in a way that people want me to teach or what's popular. And that can be a hard line to navigate as a yoga teacher, because I could change my teaching and I could teach in a certain way that probably will bring a lot of students in my classroom, but it won't be me. It won't be authentic to me, and it won't be a teaching and yoga that I believe in. It's a hard line to walk as a yoga teacher, especially a full-time yoga teacher, because we want to teach what we believe in, but we also have to pay the bill from teaching. We also have to make a living. So yeah, it's an interesting line, and I really appreciated his courage to teach in a way that he believes in. Whether you agree with him or not, I think that I gained a lot out of this conversation, and he inspired me in so many ways, not only in his yoga teachings, but also his ultra running. And I do really encourage you to check out the podcast episode that I'm going to link on the show notes, where he is a guest on other podcasts, where he shares his journey of his stories, of his background. And that is also very, very inspiring. So I encourage you to go listen to it. So that is it. If you're interested in joining my mentorship program, go apply on the link in the show notes. If you have questions, you can always message me on my Instagram account, which is at Reika Yoga, REIKAYOGA, or message me through my website, www.reikayoga.com. And if you want to leave a 5-star review or subscribe or anything on whatever platform you're listening to that is going to help this podcast be seen and known, that would be wonderful. Probably most importantly, just share this podcast with your yoga teacher friends. That would mean a lot to me. So that is it. In terms of my running training, yesterday I finished my second 20-mile long run for this training block. And from now until my race, my quote-unquote self-paced race day, my running load's gonna start to decrease to get me ready for that important day. So I feel pretty good about where I'm at in my training, and I feel excited to deload and kind of back off on long running miles so I can feel ready and energized for the day that I'm going to run my 50K, which is about 31 miles. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast, and have a lovely day, and talk to you next week. Bye.